One of the unusual facts about Accrington Stanley Football Club, a few miles away from where I live, is that it was, or is, a founder member of the Football League in the 1890s. Well, admittedly it didn't last long against the likes of Aston Villa and Everton, but after a long and colourful history it still survives and has a strong local following. I did notice, unfortunately, that they lost 7-0 on Saturday against Peterborough in the Sky Bet League One. Someone reported another match, though, recently against Wigan, which produced a happier result. After losing at the beginning, they came back and eventually nailed a 3-1 victory. That was how they described it. I don't really do football, if I'm honest, but with half of my attention thinking about the Stations of the Cross, I picked up on the word nailed. "We nailed the match," said the pro-Accrington commentator. "This is Stanley," says the sign at the entrance to its ground, "the club that wouldn't die." So when they nailed Jesus, by the same token, they won. The temple priests, the scribes and the Pharisees, and the crowd who shouted for his death when Pilate wanted to let him go. Finally they got him pinned down. Another image goes through my head of one of those Edwardian butterfly collections, mounted up for display, the trophy of a triumphant enthusiast successful in the pursuit of his quarry. But what did they think they were nailing down, you wonder? Not so much the soldiers, who were just doing their gruesome physical job, and presumably weren't paid to do much philosophy, but the priests and the scribes, the ones who wanted to protect the purity of the temple and of the Jewish religion. What were they thinking? And had they considered the things that Jesus had actually said, the things that he'd done? Had they risked wondering whether maybe he had anything that might have been of God, might have been important for them to engage with at all? Or did they really just see nothing more than the threat, the obvious wrongness of someone who preached and practiced so differently to the way that they'd always done it? They had a long tradition, as Jesus had often pointed out, of ignoring the Holy Spirit of God, who'd spoken so often through the persecuted prophets of ancient history and been ignored, at least by those who held all the power. The idea of the chief priests and the scribes finally nailing Jesus, the club that wouldn't die, against the enemy of God, who so finally was so definitely about to die. What sort of an idea was that? Lord, forgive me for thinking, probably more than I realised, the same way as the ones who banged in the nails, the ones who were just doing what their job description demanded, or the ones who stirred up the mob, who faked the evidence so that it suited their interests and didn't care about the truth. And perhaps most of all, the ones who were so convinced that they had nothing to learn, that they never listened, never changed, even when God came. Lord, burn away the coldness of my heart and my thinking with the fierce heat of your sweat and your breath and your blood pouring out from the wounds in your open hands.